All right, so welcome to SFA Live right here from New York. We're at the Javits Center, and today Foodable Network is covering the Specialty Food Association's biggest show of the year. And this is all about specialty food, and of course, the topics around specialty food that we'll be exploring throughout the episode series that you'll get a chance to see here live. Whether you're checking us out on Facebook or some of our other channels, and hopefully eventually on the blog over on foodabletv.com. Make sure and stay tuned over the next 3 days. We'll be here in New York. So with me today, I want to talk, of course, to Carmel Hagen, who is the founder of Supernatural Foods. Great to have you back. You were just at an event with us.
I was. It's great to be back with Foodable.
Yeah.
Especially at this show, which was one of my favorite food shows there is.
Yeah, but we came to your turf now. So
Yes, you did.
This is home for you, New York. Carmel, let's talk a little bit about Supernatural Foods and kind of your backstory. What is Supernatural Foods for our viewers and listeners today?
Sure. So Supernatural Foods is one of the only companies that's helping creative chefs. So I'm talking about pastry chefs, even ice cream shops, cake decorators, express themselves creatively on desserts without the use of artificial colors and preservatives.
Right.
So that's a category that really hasn't seen a lot of innovation in 50 years. We're pretty fresh out of the gate. We're a 6-month-old. We launched exclusively at Whole Foods. We're just about to launch our wholesale platform later this year.
Nice. So when you look at, because to me, that's one of the things that I feel we're seeing this massive tide starting to develop in terms of consumer demand with a lot better options, choices, quality, health aspects, and it's being pushed through to the restaurant side of it as well, and including bakeries, of course. Specifics about some of the products itself. Can you talk to us about some of your leading products and how they apply?
Absolutely. So where we started was really the most popular categories within the decorative baking or edible art space.
Okay.
So things like sprinkles, food colors, soon a piping gel. That's where we started, and our sort of launch collection debuted last November.
Oh, nice.
So we're doing some really fun things. We have the first heat-resistant plant-based food color for home chefs on the market.
Heat-resistant?
Yes.
Explain that.
So to take a step back, these products, food colors, the stuff that you would use on like a sugar flour fondant.
Right.
They are very difficult. They're confectionery items.
Right.
And it's not, they use chemicals because chemicals ultimately wound up being the way that we got them to perform 50 years ago.
Exactly.
So to replace those ingredients, which, hilariously now they include things that are banned in other countries. So things like artificial colors, these preservatives, the GMOs, the corn syrup, they really have the worst ingredients that are out there. And to replace those with natural ingredients requires a lot of R&D, specifically on the natural color side.
Yeah.
So you're not just talking about making something red, you're talking about finding that color in nature, figuring out how it works in heat with light in a pH stable or not at all kind of way, and then really, putting that through the paces and making it.
How did you get into this business? Because doesn't seem like a mainstream product. It's one that's hugely needed. But how'd you fall in or design yourself into this business?
So when I was young, I was a very passionate little kid chef.
Okay, all right.
When I was 10, I was in a Pillsbury bake-off.
Oh, well, there you go.
And it was just an area that I was, it always just made me so happy. And my parents were both very creative. And I just never needed to use a recipe. In my house, it was fine to never use a recipe and just explore. I did not start in food. This has always just been my passion. I spent about a decade in tech.
Okay.
And then 3 years ago, I left to figure out if food was the new place for me.
Nice.
And started working on Supernatural because it's just a huge problem that needed a solution.
Well, and when you look at food today, we're seeing a lot more tech injection into the food space, not only in the manufacturing side, but also distribution, the processing, the whole process around how you're telling your story. Everything has kind of moved to this tech environment, when you look at food and kind of how the growth of that is going. Let's talk a little bit about the food service side itself, and that is the chefs, bakers. They obviously are starting to see some demand for this. What are you guys seeing in terms of trends around that?
So just like we see across almost every category in the food industry right now, there's so much demand for cleaner ingredients that don't have links to adverse health effects. And this particular category, the decorative baking category, just the demand has been there hilariously for like 20 years, but the science kind of hasn't been there. It's been difficult to create a product that actually met that demand well. There's just been sacrifices.
Yeah, and I can imagine with chefs, it's probably a whole issue around trust and quality and all the things, because they're kind of putting their reputation on the line in essence to...
Exactly. So that our first line was debuted for the home chef.
Okay.
But really, the difficult chef is the professional chef. They're our audience. Because our products have to perform to meet their standards. People at home are a little more forgiving. And some slivers of that audience are extremely forgiving.
Right.
Professional chefs, a cake decorator,
not a chance.
They are pastry chefs. No, they are very demanding. So that's what we have to develop towards.
So you were able to kind of appease and address that demand. With that being the case, obviously moving into the consumer side would be maybe not a little easier, but maybe even more fun, because you'd get a chance to really excel in terms of the performance of the product. Was that something you were finding in the consumer side?
Absolutely. I mean, when I first started working on Supernatural, the big question was, do the existing products, the existing natural options out there, which there are not many, do they not perform because that's how natural ingredients perform? Like, are we ever going to get there?
Yeah.
And I had to answer that question before I started the company, because why start the company if we can't do better than that?
Yep.
So, we spent months and months just running all these hundreds of sources of natural color through the paces of heat tests and pH testing.
Okay.
And the truth is, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it also hadn't been pushed. It hadn't been pushed the way that it needed to be to really figure out what's possible.
When you were looking at some of those challenges, what were some of the things that were really stick out for you when, the R&D phase of getting that product out there? What were some of the big ones?
So in the natural world, in the natural color world, there's two sort of holy grails.
Okay.
Which is blue and red. So to make a natural blue that's like a fabulous natural blue that you could put in a cake batter as well as on top of a cupcake, it's been the hardest thing to accomplish. People have almost given up over the last 15, 20 years. Right. So now there's fabulous spirulinas that make a great mermaid blue.
Oh, okay.
But it's not going to be it's not a range that you find in the chemical color world, right? We don't have that much control.
Interesting.
But we actually chose not to work with spirulina because it has trouble in heat. So our blue, and sort of anecdotally, I'll say that the way you kind of need to work with nature is sometimes a little bit more, it's accommodating and creative. So our blue is actually called Magic Blackberry, our current blue. There will be more. And it's a pH sensitive color. So you can get a turquoise out of it, you can get a green out of it, you can get a denim blue out of it.
Interesting.
You can also get
really
a pink.
Flex the colors out of it just by changing the pH.
It's such a cool, natural colors are amazing, right? Think of a hydrangea.
Okay.
White,
all the
pink,
variances.
blue. It all has to do with the pH of the soil.
Right.
And the natural blue that we work with is the exact same sort of pH sensitivity of a hydrangea.
Wow. Hence supernatural foods.
Hence supernatural. There's a lot of magic to it.
I like it. All right. So chef, consumer, we talked about. Let's talk about kind of the trends that are hitting chefs out there today. And that is this evolution of specialty food. So obviously we're here at the Specialty Food Show, Fancy Food Show in New York. Over 2,500 exhibitors. I got a chance to walk the aisles. I'm completely blown away with all these very unique products that could easily make it into a restaurant menu, as either part of the menu ingredient mix, or maybe as something in the plating aspect, in the cocktail aspects. Where do you see that growing right now? Especially food and food service seems to be coming together in one central place. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. It seems like a really fun time to be a chef. Because I think there was one point in history where there was a wall that you would hit with how creative you were allowed to be in your menus. These days, that's the differentiating point. What is the new ingredient? When you're walking the shelves of the aisles of this show, what's jumping out at you? And you get that creative spark, and ta-da, you have your new fabulous item.
Yeah.
I just think that's so cool. And to be a chef in this particular moment when you have the consumer demand and then the availability, it's just you talk to a lot of chefs.
Yes.
Are they in a good space right now?
They love it. I mean, it's to them, the canvas has been opened up in the last 5 years to a place I think they all think is beyond anything they could ever imagine when they got into food for the first time. So very cool. All right, so trends going there. Obviously, a big marriage between specialty food and where food service is moving. Let's talk about the future of Supernatural Foods. Where are you
Sure.
guys going? Young brand,
Young
New York
brand.
based.
So there is the companies that exist in this space conventionally, like for instance Wilton,
Right.
they have 2,500 SKUs.
Yep.
So these are companies that have product lines that sort of like span. It's incredible. So what our future contains for probably the next 3 to 5 years is getting out the top 25 of those products. So
Okay.
creating a natural alternative. Some of these things they're kind of moonshots in like a funny way. So for instance, the confetti cake. Everybody loves confetti cake. To this day, there's no natural alternative for getting those little rainbow dots inside your batter.
Oh, wow.
So one of our big R&D challenges right now is figuring out how
That's
can
in
we
every
create.
bakery out there.
Totally, right. And every single one of those cakes is made with artificial colors that are banned in other countries. So, most people get that cake, they know they shouldn't be eating it, but they're doing it anyway.
Right.
And so we want to create the first way to just take sort of the guilt and the cringe out of that
Sure.
cake, because confetti cake's not going away.
Sure. So those kind of movements. So we're seeing this, from the aspect of food manufacturing and especially food manufacturing as a whole, really kind of making this. I won't call it. I mean, because you see companies like Tyson who are getting into innovations. Chobani started their
Yeah.
program on their incubator. We had the hatchery on here earlier with Phil.
Yeah.
There's all these incubators that are starting to, which are all, in most cases, all specialty food companies. And at the same time, you've got these major groups like the one you just mentioned, 2,500 SKUs. Do you feel like the consumer is at a point now where they're starting to recognize the differences? Because it seems that way. Whole Foods obviously is a big attribute to that, meaning, it's like a warehouse of all these great specialty foods. In many cases, are very small manufacturers that
Exactly.
they've sourced and found. Do you feel like the consumer trend is just starting to demand this type of product?
Absolutely. I mean, I drink the Kool-Aid, but I genuinely think that, yes. And the market shows that that's where it's going as
Yeah.
well. The growth is in specialty, the growth is in natural, the growth is not in conventional. It's flatlined, right? So when you look, and even something like Amazon acquiring Whole Foods,
Sure.
like everyone's placing their bet that this is where food should be going. And I think on a human level, it's where we want it to go.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the way that we thought about food was so fundamentally different 20 years ago when a lot of
Yes.
these companies, the big guys were just like digging in.
Right.
And now it's different and we're doing things differently and people are loving it.
Yeah. I think that's a great ending point. Great
Absolutely.
stuff. First of all, thank you so much for stopping in on the set today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's great.
good luck at Supernatural Foods. This is
Thank
going to be
you.
fun to watch you guys start taking these moonshots out there.
Absolutely.
And,
Thank you.
And the chefs hopefully out there that are using it. If they want to learn more about what you guys are doing, just supernaturalfoods.com.
Supernaturalkitchen.com.
Okay.
And if you would like to participate in a wholesale pilot that we're working
Okay.
on, you can also email us through that same website.
All right. So you heard it here from the SFA live TV set here at the Specialty Food Association's Fancy Food Show, New York City. Stay tuned right here for more from Foodable Network. We'll catch you soon.